Hi, I'm Colt Gill. I'm the director of the Oregon Department of Education. Thanks for taking time to watch this video. I also want to take just a brief minute to recognize and acknowledge the time that we're in. Over the past 10 months, our state has worked together to navigate this ever-changing landscape of a global pandemic. And in Oregon, we've done pretty well. For those of you who are part of the education community, from our educators to our bus drivers, school board members, and everyone else, especially including our students and families, I'm deeply grateful for your service, your resilience, and your willingness to work together through this. In this video, I hope to share 3 pieces of information: a snapshot of updates made to Oregon's Ready Schools Safe Learners guidance, a brief explanation of how to understand and use the updated health metrics chart to inform local decision-making about returning to in-person instruction, and a call to action and my hope for our path moving forward. I also need to note that the guidance itself is over 90 pages. It includes multiple documents. It has over 160 requirements that schools must meet to implement and open to in-person instruction. The information shared here is just a snapshot and is not intended to be comprehensive. These updates have been informed by our partners at the Oregon Health Authority, and they represent our commitment to prioritizing student and staff safety through diligent preparation, action planning, and communication. So let me turn to my 3 points. First, we'll start with a snapshot of the key updates. The health metrics transitioned from required to advisory as of January 1st. What this means for students and families across Oregon is that superintendents and local education leaders have the ability to use the health metrics along with other information to inform local decision-making on returning to in-person instruction. The metrics are the only part of the guidance that has shifted to advisory. All the other health and safety protocols are required. When it comes to local decision-making, if a school should decide to open for any form of in-person instruction, the school must meet those specific requirements. I want to touch on some of those requirements and emphasize that a return to in-person learning needs to be done through a measured approach, where all the health and safety protocols are followed with fidelity. So again, in order for schools to return to in-person instruction, schools must fully train all staff on the 160 plus requirements in those first 3 sections of Ready Schools Safe Learners guidance. They also need to designate a school leader who will implement, support, and enforce the health and safety protocols at each school site. They need to work with families to serve all students, even those in high-risk populations, whether that means that the student is being served on-site or through comprehensive distance learning at their choice, or a hybrid of those two. Schools also need to establish protocols to notify individuals and local public health of any COVID-19 cases or exposures at school so that we can act quickly to support those students and staff. Schools need to offer access to testing for symptomatic students and staff identified on campus, as well as those with known exposure to individuals with COVID-19. This is especially true if the school is opening when the metrics would suggest otherwise. Finally, schools need to establish a local process for problem solving and resolving complaints about their implementation of the guidance. I'll move on now to a brief explainer on how to read the updated metrics chart. We fielded a lot of questions from educators and families around the health metrics, and they have changed from time to time in Oregon as we've responded to the pandemic. So let me walk through a brief explanation of those metrics now. The first key document is located at the Oregon Health Authority website or the Oregon Department of Education website. It is a 2-week look-back report to map your county case rate or case count to the chart that I'll show on the next slide. We've split the counties into 3 groups, so large counties with a population of over 30,000, medium counties between 15 to 30,000 in population, and small counties with less than 15,000 people. You start on this left side of the metrics chart, the blue column, and you take a look at the county case rate. That's for those large counties over 30,000, so they would use this top row. The county case count is for medium and small counties, so they use this middle row. And then the county test positivity is also a factor for large and medium-sized counties. Next, you begin to look at the rows. So if I'm in a large county with a case rate below 50 over the last 2 weeks, then this is saying we're advising those schools to open to all students to in-person instruction following the health and safety protocols. If I'm in a county, say a medium-sized county with 45 cases over the last 2 weeks, and a test positivity between 5 and 10%, then I'm in the yellow column. The yellow column is suggesting that schools begin to open to elementary and open diligently with maybe a few grade levels at a time, getting those cohorts in place, practicing the health and safety protocols, and then bringing on additional grade levels over time. When they show that they are able to stay open in that setting, that they are mitigating the spread of COVID-19, they could also look at how to reduce cohort sizes in middle and high school and begin to open those schools to in-person instruction as well. When a county is in this larger range of 200 to 350 in the case rate, or 60 to 90 case count over the previous 2 weeks, in this area, we're saying that we are advising schools to still consider opening elementary schools where they serve younger students that are, ages 10 and 12 and younger. Those students tend to get the disease less often and don't tend to spread it to others as frequently. That's not true for middle and high school students who experience the disease much like adults do. So we would suggest opening those elementary schools carefully, again, a few grade levels at a time. If the counties are still in the over 350 or over 90 in the medium and small counties, we would suggest holding off and waiting for comprehensive distance learning unless there are other factors that would lead you to believe it would be safe to open to in-person instruction. I want to focus in on this last line down here on the next slide. What this says is that when a school is open already and your county case rates or case counts continue to climb, then we suggest pausing expansion of adding additional in-person learning. So don't add additional grade levels yet, but schools aren't required to close in that moment. They can choose to go back to distance learning if they choose to, but we would suggest if they're have an ability to limit transmission through all the health and safety protocols, and they're not seeing spread of COVID-19 in the school community, then they could remain open if they choose. There are 2 keys to opening to in-person instruction with stability. The first is that case counts matter. The more COVID-19 in the community, the more likely it is to show up in a school. This may not cause spread in the school, but it will make learning more difficult as staff and students are quarantined and immediately move back to distance learning. Second, schools are structured settings. Around the world and here in Oregon, they have proven that they can mitigate the spread by implementing health protocols with fidelity. But that takes everyone in the school community, staff, students, and families to comply with those health and safety measures every single day. My hope for our path forward. We are at another turning point here in Oregon. We have an opportunity to bring more of our learners, particularly our youngest and most vulnerable, back to school in person with proper health and safety protocols in place. My hope is that we can work in partnership as communities, as Oregonians, with our school leaders and public health to create the conditions that allow our staff and students to return to in-person instruction to the greatest extent possible. This means using the protocols we know well: entry screening, face coverings, physical distancing, sanitizing, hand washing. All of those need to be in place. We will make a commitment to continue to review those metrics as we learn more about the impact of vaccines and rapid testing, and also as we learn more about the impact of the variants of COVID-19. It's going to take all of us working together. And it's worth naming that there will be places in communities where in-person instruction is simply not possible due to the level of community spread and the readiness to meet health and safety protocols. Thank you. Please see our website at oregon.gov/ODE for more information.